I still have that. Ow!
Has this ever happened to you? Well, fret no more, we have a product just for you. Miracle Goop. Miracle Goop like it never even happened. Never on the market has there been a product so powerful it can glue limbs back together, cause any wounds no matter how bloody to heal almost instantly. It's one of those products that you just cannot live without, folks. Werewolf bite off a few fingers off your hand? No problem. Vampire woman bites your jugular? No issue. Giant airplane man tries to cut you to bits? Also no problem. We here at Miracle Goop Incorporated stand behind our product 100%. Your satisfaction is guaranteed. It glues, it glubs, it puts missing limbs back together like nothing ever happened. Act now and Duke will throw in a second bottle absolutely free. Buy today to live to see tomorrow.
Resident Evil Village is a survival horror game developed and published by Capcom. The story is set 3 years after the events of Resident Evil 7. The main character from that game, Ethan, also returns to Village as its protagonist. Ethan has been living with his wife, Mia, and 6-month-old daughter in Europe, who was put there by Chris Redfield to allow them to start a new life. But just like most things in Resident Evil, things can't ever remain normal, as Chris Redfield and his men suddenly appear, murder Mia, kidnap Rosemary, and take Ethan away to put him in containment. But Ethan awakens next to the crashed transport truck, which brings him to a secluded village filled with lichens, vampires, and other beings. Ethan must make his way through enemies, obstacles, and puzzles to rescue Rosemary, and also try to figure out why Chris Redfield did what he did to Mia. And also, yes, there is a 9-foot-tall vampire lady trying to step on your face.
Mother, I bring you fresh prey.
You are so kind to me, daughters. Now, let's take a look at him. Well, Ethan Winters. You escaped my little brother's idiot games, did you? Let's see how special you are.
Yes, Mother.
The story of Resident Evil Village was a fitting continuation of Resident Evil 7. The story of Village is about 10 to 12 hours, which is about the standard horror game length nowadays. While the story definitely leans more suspense than horror compared to Resident Evil 7, which leaned more horror, they still do a great job of adding horror elements to keep the player on their feet. While some boss fights could have been better, I still thoroughly enjoyed all the bosses. It may not have reached the level of creep that the bosses in Resident Evil 7 did, but Village still did a great job of varying the bosses and other enemy types up in different ways. The level design in Village was fantastic, as to be expected, as the RE engine is one of the best engines out there, and Capcom did a great job of making every area look completely different. On the other hand, one of the few negatives I had with the game, and it's not even really much of one, is Ethan was never the most captivating of protagonists. I personally like Ethan and enjoy playing as him in both this game and Resident Evil 7, mostly to see how much punishment he would take. It can't be denied that he isn't a character with a ton of personality, and his reactions to some things in-game can be a little off at times. It's not something many people look for when they play a Resident Evil game, or any horror game for that matter, but I figured it was worth mentioning. That being said, Capcom is on a roll with the Resident Evil franchise, and have really turned it around since the not-so-good Resident Evil 5 and 6. And hopefully, they can keep that momentum rolling. The gameplay is very similar to Resident Evil 7's. The blocking mechanic is the same as Resident Evil 7's, where the enemy is about to hit you. Ethan puts up his hands at the last second or whatever to time it, and it's able to minimize the damage you take. It even pretty much the same animation. Also, as you saw in the beginning of the review, the healing items that we have coined quote-unquote Miracle Goop has also made a return to the game, which pretty much allows Ethan to glue limbs back on and survive ridiculous scenarios, which is probably one of my favorite parts of the game, just because it's just so funny. and I have to imagine that they know it's funny, and that's why they keep doing it. This game does have various puzzles, and while I don't feel like it has as many puzzles as 7 did, I also don't feel like the game needed it, and what was there was great anyway. This game also does a great job of mixing up action and stealth. Like the most recent Resident Evil games have, they've kind of mastered that. Sometimes it's necessary to sneak around to avoid death, while some sections require you to go in guns blazing. Granted, with the exceptions of a few areas, if you wanted to go into every section guns blazing, have at it. If you want to use all your ammo in one section, go ahead. Good luck with the rest of the game, but you can do that. Either way, the gameplay and the story always kept me on the edge of my seat, waiting to see what would happen next. I have done a lot of comparing to Resident Evil 7 because that's obviously the easiest game to compare it to. I mean, it has the same protagonist, pretty much the same gameplay for the most part, with a few changes here and there. But the exception of that is being able to buy supplies, guns, and other items from a shop ran by our boy, Duke.
I've been waiting for you, Mr. Winters.
You're the big
You know
boy.
my name.
Anyone who is anyone has heard of the likes of you. A hero searching for his daughter. Though I must say, that castle arouses suspicion.
Yeah, and so do you.
I am but a humble merchant.
Here?
Oh, forgive my manners. Call me the Duke. Now to business. Weapons, ammunition, healing salves, anything you desire, I can provide.
Another thing the player can do is craft items, kind of like you could in Resident Evil 7. Whether it's using 2 gunpowder and 2 rusted scrap to create 15 handgun ammo, or 1 herb and 1 chem fluid to create miracle goop, you have to manage your resources wisely to make sure you can craft items you need when you most need them. Sure, Duke is an option, but Duke isn't always around to help you when you need supplies, so resource management is very necessary. In terms of collectibles, a lot of it is the Goats of Warding, which are goat statues that you find throughout the map that you break. Think of these like the football player bobbleheads in Resident Evil 7, where you had to break them all to get a trophy or whatever. Other than that, a lot of what is collected is crafting items and items like lockpicks and keys used to unlock drawers in other areas of the map, along with maybe some secret areas here and there. So it is a good idea to look everywhere because you never know what you may find. Look at the map. If an area is red, that means that there's something there that you either need to scavenge or whatever. But once that area is blue, you know it's everything in that area has been collected. So it's always nice to keep an eye on your map so you know which areas are blue, which areas are red, which areas maybe you haven't looked through, or which areas you may have to go back to. So it's always something to keep in mind. In terms of your final score, I think this game was fantastic. There's your few nagging issues here and there I talked about a little bit in this review. Nothing serious, nothing major, but overall I thought this was a very solid survival horror game. Capcom kind of has done it again. First Resident Evil 7, which was more horror, and this game was more like suspense, horror, action. And Capcom just has this down to a T, and I'm so happy that they've turned this whole thing around, because 5 and 6 were so just blah. And I'm just happy they finally turned it around. Yes, there is a lot of things that's comparable to Resident Evil 7, but they just kind of used Resident Evil 7 and built onto that to add more and more. They kind of combined Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 4 to make this game, so I thought that was a genius idea. All that being said, I'm going to give Resident Evil Village a 9 out of 10, a very solid, very good, great survival horror game that I think anyone who enjoyed Resident Evil 7, anyone who enjoys horror games, survival horror games, should play this game. You will not regret it. The game just kept me captivated from beginning to end. What was going to happen next? What was going to happen with Ethan? Was how's the story going to turn? Which way is it going to go? And it always kept me on the edge of my seat. The game made me want to go around collecting everything, to get my best crafting items, get better weapons, find things to give Duke that I can sell, because you can also sell things to Duke. I didn't talk about that. You can also sell things to Duke for money, and just going around trying to find better things to be able to sell to him to get more money to buy other items that you may need later on. But all in all, fantastic game. I can't wait to see what Capcom does in the future with the Resident Evil franchise. But until then, that is going to do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you next time. Bye, guys.